A man's life's work is merely a brightly colored scarf tied around a throat that has already stopped breathing. Well, welcome to This Explainer. I'm your host, but for our journey today, you can just consider me the Shadow Reaper. I'm going to be your guide through a sort of cosmic audit of human existence. What we're looking at is a dark, cautionary fable, one that completely strips away all the comforting illusions we build our lives upon. It's a cynical, incredibly inevitable accounting, and honestly, it's just fascinating to break down. So let's get into the honest sound and the logic of zero. We're going to examine the absolute futility of human ambition, and we're doing it entirely through the unfeeling, incredibly objective lens of what our source material calls the high cold. Let's just see what's actually left when all the self-deception is stripped away from your so-called legacy.
All right, Act 1, the pulpit of the perished stars. Now, you really have to picture this environment, because it's absolute. The air on this pulpit doesn't just chill your skin, that's way too physical. The atmosphere here literally freezes the very concept of warmth. It's a metaphysical absolute zero. And right in the middle of it stands our subject, known simply as the Seeker, just waiting for judgment.
Now, what exactly is the Seeker doing up there on the pulpit? Well, he's tightly clutching his roast beast. Sounds ridiculous, right? But it's this pathetic, desperate little scroll, a ledger of his life's deeds and illusions. He's standing in the ultimate freezing void, and he actually believes that his memories and his tiny terrestrial accomplishments can somehow keep the infinite abyss at bay. It's just a brilliant illustration of human delusion, perfectly wrapped up in one pathetic object.
Okay, moving to Act 2, enter the Grimgrash. And the Grimgrash is an entity of pure, high, cold indifference. He doesn't show up with trumpets or fanfare or some dramatic light show. He arrives with the absolute, unquestionable inevitability of a closing door. There's literally no negotiating with a closing door. He steps into the scene, leaning in with a face that's just a blank landscape of supreme detachment. He doesn't even look at the Seeker. He looks right through the Seeker's life achievements. And here is how the destruction happens. It's triggered by something called the honest sound, and it causes the instantaneous, terrifying collapse of everything the Seeker holds dear. First, the warm, comforting memory of his mother's hearth, it simply shatters. Then, the immense pride he felt in his very first life conquest turns instantly to ash. And finally, his ultimate protection, his hope for a lasting legacy, just vanishes entirely. The honest sound hits, and all these hollow sanctuaries are obliterated in a flash.
Thud. That's it. That is the nature of the destruction. The honest sound isn't loud, it's not this deafening roar or a massive explosive crash. It's just immensely heavy. It is the sheer unadulterated weight of reality bearing down all at once. And under the crushing pressure of this thud, the Seeker structures don't just break, they're exposed as having been completely hollow all along. That roast beast he was so desperately clinging to, it immediately disintegrates into gray ash right in his hand.
And while all of this is happening, the Grimnash just watches. He observes this total destruction with total clinical detachment. He's not acting out of malice or anger or cruelty. He's functioning purely as a metaphysical antibody. Just like an antibody attacks a foreign illusion in a healthy system, the Nash is simply testing to see if anything genuine can actually survive the pressure of absolute truth. And the answer is nothing. The Seeker's entire identity shatters completely. Which brings us to Act 3. And this, my friends, is where I step forward. As the Shadow Reaper, I move silently from the background of this cosmic theater. While the Nash delivers the pressure, I am the cosmic accountant. I'm the one who harvests the shattered, hollow fragments of the Seeker. I don't do this with some evil laugh or a malicious sneer. I just step into the wreckage to close the books. Now, it's really vital to understand the distinction here. What happens to the Seeker is absolutely not murder. Murder is messy. It's a terrestrial act that leaves a corpse, an investigation, a grieving family. Murder leaves a legacy. It leaves a mark on the world. But what I do? That's deletion. Deletion applies the cold accounting of the abyss. It's an absolute, indifferent, metaphysical erasure. When you're deleted, you don't leave a corpse. You just leave a mathematical void. And that void is the logic of zero. As the Shadow Reaper, I don't waste my energy on cruelty. I simply dip my quill right into the pool of gore, the liquid remains of the Seeker's entirely fabricated history, and I log the final entry. And that entry is zero. A perfectly balanced equation where a lifetime of struggle, vanity, and ambition is tallied up and results in absolutely nothing.
It is, without a doubt, the most honest mathematics in the universe. All right, let's move on to Act 4, which focuses on the Grim Ganash's retrospective. The Ganache possesses this really fascinating ability to step outside the moment. He views this entire destruction through what the text calls a lunar lens. He acts as a cynical guest in his own theater. He watches the Seeker's face contort in pure horror as everything vanishes, and through this lunar lens, he finds the ultimate punchline. And the punchline is the sheer vanity of the struggle itself. To explain this, the Ganache offers us a little story. This is the parable of the Gilded Echo. So there was once a man who spent 40 years of his life building a bell of solid gold. He promised his entire village that when he finally struck it, the sound would be so transcendently beautiful that God himself would have to weep. For 40 years, he polished it every single day. He protected it from the dust by wrapping it in, and note the callback here, brightly colored scarves. Finally, the moment of truth arrives, the great noon. He steps up and he strikes the bell with absolutely all of his might. He completely expects divine music. He expects this brilliant golden ring that's going to justify 40 years of agonizing labor. But there was no golden ring. There was only a thud, a dead, heavy sound of reality. The man drops to his knees in total despair, crying out, "Where is the music? Where is the divine echo?" And here is the crucial point. It's the response he gets. The architect standing nearby doesn't offer him pity. He doesn't comfort him. Instead, he points down to the floor and delivers this crushing verdict. The music was a lie, you told the metal. The thud is the only thing the metal ever truly believed in. You didn't build a bell, friend. You built a very expensive way to hear the silence. This just brilliantly illustrates the totally hollow nature of the Seeker's ambitions. At the end of the day, we all spend our lives building very expensive ways to hear the silence. Which brings us to our final act, Act 5. Truth from the High Cold. The Seeker has been hollowed out. I, the Reaper, have finished my tally. It's time for the final accounting. We're now going to recite the universal laws of the abyss for all the future entries out there who are currently watching this explainer. These are the aphorisms that actually govern existence once you finally strip away the warm lies we tell ourselves. Hope is a frequency. The thud is the ground. Eventually, every frequency returns to the dirt. Human hope, ambition, the desire for progress, they're just temporary vibrations in the air. But the thud? The thud is gravity. It is the fundamental, entirely inescapable truth of the ground. No matter how high your frequency hums during your incredibly short life, the ground is always waiting, and it always wins. And this brings us right back to my own role in your existence. The Reaper is the only honest historian. He knows that the ink of the past is always drawn from the blood of the delusional. Every history book, every monument, every grand narrative of human achievement you can think of is really nothing more than a ledger written with the gore of self-deception. We just record the delusions until the deletions finally clear the board. Which brings us to the ultimate punchline of existence. It is the absolute purest expression of the logic of zero. The tragedy isn't that the Seeker loses everything. The tragedy is that he truly believed there was something to lose. And that is the core absurdity of building a legacy. The universe doesn't mourn your missing bell. It literally laughs at the fact that you thought you possessed gold in a universe made entirely of empty space. The Seeker's ledger is closed. His empty eyes now reflect only the gray truth of the void. And so, I turn my cold gaze directly to you, the focused learner, diligently taking notes on your own existence. Take a hard look at your life. Look at the brightly colored scarves you are currently tying around your own throat. Ask yourself this one chilling question. As you build your own golden bell, what lie are you currently telling your own metal? Thank you for watching. This explainer, the ledger, is now closed.